Good afternoon, everybody. It's almost nighttime. It's 8:18. I wanted to come on here real quick. I wanted to try these out, see how they're going to work. But I've got something that God revealed to me this week through my reading and studying, and I wanted to share it with you with what He was talking to me about as I was reading. And it's in 1 Samuel, and we're going to start in chapter 1. If you want to go ahead and pull it up so you can see it. And I know y'all been seeing this text at the bottom of the screen. It says, if led to give, text give to 833-973-1071. We are a nonprofit registered through the state. We have been since 2016. We have been setting all of this stuff up, led by God. So, if we would appreciate it if you are led to give, make a donation and just text it in, and we would thank you very much for it. But as I was reading and listening through 1 Samuel, and I was listening at work, which I do a lot. My job allows me to. I wear earbuds, and I'll listen to the Bible through my earbuds while I'm working. And especially if I'm in a paint booth painting by myself. And because a lot of times you'll catch stuff that's said by listening versus reading. And so while I was listening to this Monday, I caught this in the spirit, and I wanted to bring it to you. And it kind of goes with, the way the situations are right now in the world, the way the situation's going with the church. I'm going to go ahead and say this is, after I had done this and listened to it, and God was revealing and giving me revelations about it, another pastor showed me that he had preached about some of the same scriptures. And it's amazing how, at that moment, that week, the prior week before, he had preached a message on this. I think it was on a Wednesday night. And so, just open your ears and your spirit to hear this. But I'm going to start in 1 Samuel, verse 11. This is when Hannah was speaking to God, and she said, "Then she made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the afflictions of your maidservant and remember me and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head." Verse 12, and it happened as she continued praying before the Lord that Eli watched her mouth. Now Hannah spoke in her heart, only her lips moved, and her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she was drunk. So she was praying to God, and she was speaking to God in the spirit. And, she had a desire on her heart to have a child, and she asked God for a man child. So while they were up worshiping God, as the tradition was at that time, they went up once a year to worship God. So Eli saw her and told her and got on to her and, said, "Woman, you're drunk. Quit drinking the wine." And she talked to Eli, and she said, "No, I'm speaking to God." And then verse 17, then Eli answered and said, "Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition, which you have asked of him." So she went in peace. Verse 20, so it came to pass in the process of time that Hannah conceived and bore a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, the meaning of Samuel is because I have asked for him from the Lord. Now the man Elikiah and all the house went up to offer to the Lord the yearly sacrifice and his vow. She called him Samuel because I have asked for him from the Lord. And she had asked this from God and wanted a child. But the thing I want you to see here, and the direction that I'm going with this is, God has already prepared. He's already got something prepared and somebody prepared for what he needs them to do. And he's already bringing them up, and just the stuff that's going on now, like just even the churches, this guy was talking to me, at work about how they had ministers that was up in the pulpits that wasn't even saved, that didn't even know God, and that was trying to preach. And, and he was trying to explain to them, that you got to be saved, you got to know God and all this stuff. But these people, they'd heard of God, they knowed of God, but they did not adhere. They did not listen to the commandments and the laws and everything that God has set forth. They just wanted to be up there. They wanted it to be up there on the platform. They wanted to be up there so they could say they were on the platform. And like he said some of these people, they don't even understand. They're not even called to be up here, to be on the stage, to be up here on this platform, to be doing what they think that they want to do, because they don't understand. So Hannah, she had asked for a child. Okay, so God gave her this child and Eli prophesied it to her. And so God is preparing the way right now for what's fixing to happen. Okay, so I want you to just bear with me here. All right, then we're going to go into 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 11. He says, then Elkanah went to his house at Ramah, but the child ministered to the Lord before Eli the priest. Now, this is the child Samuel. All right, verse 12. Now, the sons of Eli were corrupt. And I want you to hear this part right here. It says, they did not know the Lord. Eli's sons was working in the temple with God. They were serving, but they did not know the Lord. And this is the same thing that this pastor was telling me about what was going on around him in the churches that he was in, and that some of the people that he had met, the people were coming and serving God, but they didn't even know God. And by doing that and not being called and not being submitted to God and doing what God needs you to do and to live the life that God needs you to live, they were disrupting everything that God, all the plans, all the rules, they were disrupting everything. All right. Now, here's one of the things he says, and the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered a sacrifice, the priest's servants would come with a 3-pronged flesh hook in his hand while the meat was boiling. They had a 3-pronged hook. And when the people would bring the meat, they'd put it in water to boil it. And their pay, their tithe, what God was give to them, they were to cast this into the pot while the meat was boiling and pull it back out. And that was their portion. That was the priest's portion for what they were supposed to get. But Eli's sons wasn't even doing that. They were taking what they wanted first and then putting what the left in the pot for God. So, like I said, Eli's sons, they did not know the Lord, but they were serving in the church, and I don't know, but what all's going on now, people's trying to lead people, you hear about, I've seen people post, we need some leaders to step up, but we need some, and I've been on here and there's a lot of other people been talking about how God's going to shut some of these people down. He's going to show who they really are and that they're not really followers of God, and all this stuff's going to happen. And it's all laid out right here in the book of Samuel, in 1 Samuel. All right. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 17. Therefore, the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for men adored the offering of the Lord, which they wanted the offering of the Lord more. They seen that the money was more important than God. Verse 22, he says, now Eli was very old, and he heard everything his sons did to all Israel, and how they lay with the women who assembled at the door of the tabernacle of meetings. So he said to them, why do you do such things? For I hear of your evil dealings from all the people. No, my sons, for it is not a good report that I hear. You make the Lord's people transgress. Right now, we have people that do not know God, that do not know the Lord, that have not been called, that are up on platforms, that are trying to teach, that are leading God's people and causing them to transgress. And the thing about it is Eli had heard, he had got the report about this, and he did not do anything about it. He let everything keep going on. He didn't pull his sons out. He didn't do anything about it, and he just let it keep on, and he just let it keep on. And then you're going to see now here as we continue on what's going to happen, what God does. And he says, verse 25, nevertheless, they did not heed the voice of their father, because the Lord desired to kill them. And the child Samuel grew in stature and in favor, both with the Lord and men. Now, remember at the beginning of this, I told you, God has already prepared whatever's coming. He already has preparations. We don't know about it. But we if we stay with God, we're going to see it happen, and we're going to see it come forth. But he's already prepared Samuel that Eli does not even know what's going on, that Samuel is given to Eli to minister in the house, to grow up under God, to get to know God. Okay. And he said to him, thus, he says, verse 27, then a man of God came to Eli and said to him. Now I want you to notice right here, it don't say any name. It don't say the man. It just says a man. A man came. It ain't a name. It ain't Eli. It ain't Samuel. It ain't Moses. It's a man. So, everybody's looking for that name up on the billboard. This is not, that ain't what you got to be looking for. You got to be looking for God. You got to be following God and not worrying about none of this other stuff. He says, thus says the Lord, did I not clearly reveal myself to the house of your father when they were in Egypt in Pharaoh's house? I'm going to skip down to 29. He says, why do you kick at my sacrifice and my offering, which I have commanded in my dwelling place, and honor your sons more than me? Now here he's telling Eli, why are you honoring your sons more than me? I have made you the priest of my house. But what have you done? You have honored your children by not correcting them and teaching them the correct way that they need to live. And now, because you haven't, they're transgressing and causing my people to transgress and leading them astray. Because why? Because he honored his kids more than God. He wouldn't correct his kids. He wouldn't correct the church. He wouldn't speak up. He wouldn't stand up. He didn't want them mad at him. He didn't want all of this stuff. What are we worried about now these days and times? We're worried more about all of this stuff. We're not worried about what God said to us. We're more worried about what somebody's going to think if I truly say what God told me to say or what God told me to do. He says, my offering, me to make yourself, he says, dwelling place, and honor your sons more than me, to make yourselves fat with the best of all the offerings of Israel, my people. So he's taking everything that was supposed to be going to God. His sons were, not Eli, his sons were. He was taking that, and then they were taking it before God and giving God the lesser stuff. And then drop on down to verse 30. He says, for those who honor me, this is God talking, for those who honor me, I will honor, and those who despise me shall be lightly esteemed. 31, behold, the days are coming. This is the prophet that had no name, that came and told Eli, that came up from nowheres, but he had a name. But guess what? There's a lot of those coming up right now, and there's a lot of people that have names that's not giving attention to these people that's speaking. You better start paying attention to who God's sending to your house. All right? He says, behold, the days are coming, that I will cut off your arm and the arm of your father's house, so that there will not be an old man in your house. Verse 34. Now this shall be a sign to you, that you will come upon your two sons, on Hophni and Phinehas. Sorry, I can't pronounce them correctly. In one day they shall die, both of them. Then I will rise up for myself a faithful priest, who shall do according to what is in my heart and in my mind. I will build him a sure house, and he will walk before me anointed forever. This prophet just prophesies to Eli about Samuel and about his life and about the two sons and what's going to happen, because Eli honored his sons more than he honored God. And he didn't take his two sons and teach them and get them to know God. He just let them go and do whatever they wanted to do. And I'm not just talking about parents. I'm talking about the church. If you've got a church and you're up and God has put you in the position that you are the leader, and you are not talking to your people and telling them the truth and giving them what they need to know, and you're letting them do whatever they want to do, even especially if they're serving in your church, that this could fall upon you. Chapter 3, verse 7. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, nor was the word of the Lord yet revealed to him. Verse 9. This is when God was calling to Samuel, and Samuel thought it was Eli, so he was getting up and going back. And he said, therefore Eli said to Samuel, go lie down, and it shall be, if he calls you, that you must say, speak, Lord, for your servant hears. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. This is the first lesson that he got taught from Eli about how to listen to God. He said, if you hear him call, answer him and say, here I am, Lord. And so it says, verse 10, now the Lord came and stood and called at the other times, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel answered, speak, for your servant hears. All right. So now Samuel understands God's voice and knows his voice. So he tells him, here I am, speak, Lord. So then the Lord comes to him, and he says, for I have told him. He's talking to Samuel about Eli. God is right here, verse 13, chapter 3. For I have told him that I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knows, because the sons made themselves vile, and he did not restrain them. Okay. So, God set Eli up as the priest in the house. All right. He had, they were serving in the church. So let's just don't even think about them as the sons, but they were servants in the church. They were serving in the church, but they didn't even know the Lord. They had come, they had heard, they wanted to join in, they wanted to see this movement, they wanted to be a part of it, but they came and they started serving. But the priest, the leader, the one set person, notice I didn't say man, I said person, that was set by God over it, did not heed to what they were doing, did not correct them, did not put them where they needed to be, did not teach them. So they led God's people astray from what they were doing, because God's people started believing that that was good for what they were doing, because they could see it. They seen Eli's sons doing this. So it led God's people astray. But God had already, before he ever told Eli anything or anything started happening, God had already set it up with a woman with a praying heart. that was praying to God, that committed and give her son Samuel to him to serve him. And God put everything in action before anything ever happened. He already had a plan. He's got a plan now, and he's going to prevail. There's another scripture, but I ain't going to go there. But anyhow, God has a plan, but I'm telling you, it's now is the time that we get ourselves right and that we start correcting people that need to be corrected, that we start telling them the truth. We quit worrying about how they feel, if we're going to hurt their feelings or anything. We have got to correct the people because God is coming. We all know it. You hear it all the time. God's coming back. He's, we don't know when, but he is. He's coming, and it's getting sooner. But, no man knoweth. And so, like I said, it's time that we start cleaning out our churches. God's going to start cleaning them out. I've been on here a couple of times. I can't get away from it. I don't know why. But, I prophesied 2 years ago about it. About how God was mad at his priests because they were getting fat on the people and wasn't teaching the people what they needed to know. So, I just wanted to come give this to you tonight. We love yous. We'll see y'all next time. Things are starting to straighten up. Hopefully we can get started back up and get where we need to be. Get to what I need to say is get started back up to doing some Bible studies and doing some church services. I hope y'all enjoyed the worship service that we done the other Wednesday. Those guys are such a blessing to us, each and every one of them, as we grow to know each and every one of them more and more. Like we said, Tobias, he's a brother to us. His brother is a brother to me. We're like family. And actually, we probably talk more. Me and him probably talk more each day than what me and Angie do sometimes. And so me and my wife. But I just want y'all to know we love y'all, and hope y'all get something out of this. Have a blessed night, and we'll see y'all next time. Love y'all.